Ninkovich. Captain Obvious is back.
It would obviously.
I say obviously.
Obviously.
It's pretty obvious.
Well, obviously, we know Lamar's a great quarterback.
I think you're obviously right.
Obviously,
Obviously.
yeah. Number 2, obviously. Obviously.
Captain Obvious with
look.
Super Bowl champ.
Can't do it.
Rob Ninkovich. Ladies and gentlemen, the time was supposed to have arrived, but I don't know about this. I see Rob Ninkovich here. Where's Captain Obvious with the hat and the thing and the patch?
The props, I don't know. They disappeared. I don't know.
All right, well, anyway, Rob Ninkovich is here to give you lucky viewers the lowdown on championship weekend. First up, what is the obvious number of catches for Kelce against that Bengals defense?
This is a tough one because we know Kelce is a go-to guy as a target, but obviously I'm not going to disrespect Kelce. I know he's a great football player. I'm going to go with 8 catches. 8 catches. It's a good day.
It's a good day.
It's not 12. It's not 10. It's nothing crazy.
Insulted him a little bit.
It's solid. Solid 8.
Kelce right now is looking to keep him here. Keep him here. All right.
Rob
Nink. Next up, obvious number of sacks for the Chiefs defense against Joe Burrow.
You know, this one here is tough because Joe Burrow, so good, he's going to get out of the pocket. But obviously 2 sacks. I like Kansas City in their front, but I think 2. That sounds like a nice number.
Sounds like a nice number.
Yeah.
Finally, obvious number of touchdown passes for the one and only Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, this one, you know, we don't know what Patrick Mahomes is going to look like. He might not be able to throw and push off that back leg. He might be hobbled a little bit. So obviously, I'm going with 3. 3 touchdown passes. That's a nice day.
Nice day.
So I'm going with 3.
So salted them a little bit. Him and Kelce. You got the numbers good. They can't really get mad at you, Nick.
No.
But you're leaning toward the Bengals there.
You know?
Patrick Mahomes practiced yesterday for the Chiefs and said he is, quote, good to go. I think the quote was, I don't know what this guy Ninko's talking about. I'm good to go for Sunday's AFC Championship after suffering a high ankle sprain last weekend against the Jags. Here is Patrick Mahomes himself with an update on his ankle this afternoon.
Yeah, I thought I had a good day yesterday. Obviously, things you had to work through here and there. But overall, probably better than I expected, being able to go out there and throw the football around and get the reps in that I need to get in. Obviously, I feel like I can still do a lot of things. But it's gonna. We'll see as we get closer and closer, and we'll see during the game. I mean, you can't fully do exactly what you're going to be in those moments in the game, but all I can do is prepare myself the best way possible, and then when we get in the game, you hope adrenaline kind of takes over and you can make those throws when you need to.
So when the line opened, Kansas City was favored by 2.5. Almost immediately, the market flipped because of a high ankle sprain, and it was Cincy that was favored by a point. The line continued to grow, moving all the way to Cincinnati by 2.5 points before coming back down to a pick'em because he doesn't have a brace. You know, he's walking around. Okay, this is all about Mahomes' high ankle sprain. If they think it's bad, the line moves toward the Bengals. If it looks okay, people favor the Chiefs, and Kansas City right now is a slight favorite. Graz, who should be favored in this game?
The Chiefs should be favored in this game. Patrick Mahomes is 8-2 in the playoffs at home as a starting quarterback. Like the fact that the Bengals have beaten them 3 times in a row and beat them in Arrowhead last year in this exact game is the reason the line is so close. The Bengals are red hot. They've won 10 games in a row, and of course Mahomes, we're not sure he's going to be 100% healthy. I think the Bengals, will win the game, but I don't feel super confident about it because it's still the Chiefs, it's still Andy Reid, it's still Patrick Mahomes, it's still Arrowhead Stadium. I think we've gone a little too far on a small Bengals versus Chiefs sample size to assume that it's automatically Bengals. All 3 of those games have been close. The Chiefs have had a lead in all 3 of them. It's not a slam dunk, even if you like the Bengals.
That's what's nuts, Sacho, is that the Chiefs have been leading for most of those games, and the Chiefs were at home and everything. And then in the fourth quarter down the stretch, Joe Burrow outperforms Patrick Mahomes himself, right? What do you think?
I'm confused, Grass, because you're saying, man, it should be the Chiefs favored, and they're 8-2, but one of their losses is against the Bengals. And then you're saying, oh man, it's still Patrick Mahomes, but it's like they were up in all these games, but they lost all those games to the Bengals, right? All 3 of those games, and so for that. I will be. I think the Bengals should be favored. The Bengals Joe Burrow is 3-0 against the Kansas City Chiefs. Joe Burrow hasn't lost to them. Joe Burrow twice last year in Week 17, he was down big at halftime, came back and won. In the playoffs, down big at halftime, came back and won, went to the Super Bowl. And then earlier this year, he won again. They've won 10 in a row, and you could say, man, Kansas City, they've won, I think, 8 out of their last 9, whatever I say. But their one loss was to the Joe Burrow and the Bengals. And so, no, the Chiefs should not be favored. The Bengals should be favored based off of the history of their last 3 games. And so, yes, I think the Bengals should be favored.
I like the Cincinnati Bengals. I think that they're going to win this football game. I would go a little bit lighter on like the pre-hype. Like they're saying that they can't wait to get to Burrowhead Stadium.
See what I'm saying?
Like that's a little much there. Like let's kind of just pull back. Like let's get a little bit humble here. We are playing a very good Chiefs football team. So let's not poke the sleeping bear, so to speak, and put some bulletin board material up there.
I was at the Chiefs-Bengals game this year. I mean, it was nip and tuck. They had to rip a fumble out of the arms of Travis Kelce in the fourth quarter to turn that game. Like, it could...
That ain't never going to happen again.
Absolutely.
You know,
that's what I'm saying.
Look, guys, I understand what Graz is saying, Sam. I understand what Graz is saying. You're saying, I'm taking the Bengals to win, but I believe the Chiefs should be the slight favorite. In other words, you think you should be taking an upset, right?
I felt better picking the Bengals in this game last year when I was the only one doing it.
I'll say this, guys. I would not be surprised either way. I understand what you're saying, Sacho, but you can look at that in one of 2 ways. The Chiefs leading for most of the game, et cetera, et cetera. So they proved for the greater majority of the game that they are the better team in all the games. But then when it counted the most, Joe Burrow pulled a rabbit out of a hat. So the question is, can he continue to pull the rabbit out the hat? They did. He was always.
Why would he not?
Why? Because Mahomes also is a magician.
But Max, this is who Joe Burrow is. Think about that game, like maybe it was early in November when they played the Tennessee Titans, right? Like all of a sudden you think Tennessee is going to win, and Tennessee makes a mistake, and then the Joe Burrow and the Bengals win that game, right? Consistently, that's what they do. Go back to last year, right? When they were down, they were down. They had like I think 6 minutes left, trying to go down and score. Somehow, some way, against the Chiefs in Week 17, somehow, some way, the Bengals held onto the ball and found a way to win that game. Like no one thought they were going to win that game. So this is like Joe Burrow has a large sample size of proving whether I'm down early or up or whatever, I'm going to win. And so for me, that's why the Bengals should be favored. And also Mahomes is injured. Like, why shouldn't the Bengals be favored?
Well,
don't understand
Mahomes' injury is really the determining factor in terms of the odds. Coming up, my list of the most important non-quarterbacks for conference championship weekend. There is a clear number 1.
Look at their list of interview candidates. A lot of them were offensive coordinators. The idea was somebody come in here and we figure out who our quarterback is, get them right, get them on the right. And so he had the edge, I guess, ultimately over Steve Wilks, who did a good job as their interim head coach after being promoted to that job from defensive coordinator midway through the season. Reich beats him out, I think, ultimately because the team was thinking about an offensive mind to help out whoever ends up being the quarterback.
Yeah, Nico, it is odd to me. Like, I think they got to be careful of making these. If you have a guy there that the team responds to, I think of Bisaccia last year with the Raiders, and they make the move for Josh McDaniels. Look at what happened. Yeah. Why would you change? Do you think that's a good idea?
Well, I think it's styles, and Dan talked about they wanted an offensive mind, an offensive guy, a quarterback, a former quarterback. A lot of these teams, they want somebody to where if they draft a quarterback high, you have a natural progression of a head coach who's dealt with other quarterbacks in the past, was a quarterback, a little bit different dynamically than if you had a defensive-minded coach, again. So I think it's a good move. I like Frank Reich. I think he was a good coach. Just didn't work out for him at the end there with the Colts.
And that's the other thing, offensive, defensive. Frank Reich has been a good and successful head coach in the NFL, and that matters as well. Offense, defense, you need a leader.
I get it, but Sacho, as I said, you have a guy in there, you dealt McCaffrey, you're having a fire sale, and he starts to win, and the team starts to get competitive, and I think of Bisaccia last year. Do you like this, Sacho?
I do like the move, but to your point, Max, you look at what Steve Wilks was able to do, a team that people were giving up on. You talked about the fire sale, get rid of McCaffrey, get rid of some of your best players, and all of a sudden, Steve Wilks found a way to rally this team around and get them really close to the postseason, right? A game or two away, obviously in a bad division. And so you have to give him his credit. Unfortunately, he didn't get the job this time around, but I think that experience and what he was able to do, hopefully other teams and other owners with the other vacancies will be able to hire Steve Wilks based off of what he was able to do with an embarrassing situation.
Okay. It is time now, just about, for our weekly ratings spike. Our old friend Captain Robvious is back after the break with the number of TDs Patrick Mahomes will throw on his injured ankle Sunday. Better be right about this, Nick. And after the Warriors got back to 500 without Steph for the final minute 14, our insider thinks they can make a deep run in the playoffs out west.